Imagine the following scene. You open the door of your house to someone who should be a support but who, without realizing it, turns into a silent invasive. This is the real story of a family that has discovered, as worse as possible, as disrespect for boundaries can destroy even the strongest ties. And it all started with a simple and seemingly harmless gesture of solidarity. Larissa would never imagine that a yes given by compassion would become a nightmare. When her husband, Daniel, suggested that the 55-year-old mother, Eleonora, was temporarily with them after a complicated divorce, she did not hesitate. After all, how to deny shelter to a woman who dedicated her life to work, lost the house and found herself alone? The first weeks even went well. Eleonora helped with household chores, cared for the small one, 2 years old, and even prepared meals. For Larissa, who worked as a freelance designer, and Daniel, programmer in a large technology company, always absent until late, the presence of her mother-in-law looked like a blessing. But what begins as help can easily become control. And that's exactly what happened. First, it was the small signs, the rearranged room furniture to get more practical, comments on Larissa's food, the unprecedented suggestions on how to manage the house. Eleonora gradually took the role of owner of the home, as if that space had always been hers. "Honey, why don't you cook something healthier instead of asking delivery?" Larissa swallows dry, justifying herself that it was just a phase. Until the fuse came. Larissa's office, her professional sanctuary. A carefully assembled space with 2 monitors, a graphic tablet and all the necessary equipment for your design projects. One night, upon entering the room, she found Eleonora sitting at her desk, typing something on the computer, surrounded by personal papers. "What's going on?" he asked, surprised. "Oh, Larissa, don't worry. I needed to send a resume urgently, and your son said I could use it," said the mother-in-law, with a smile that didn't hide the naturalness with which I occupied that space. But what Larissa saw on the screen went beyond the professional. Flaps open with dating sites, conversations on social networks, intimate photos. "Your work files, minimized. Next time, let me know before. I have confidential projects here," he said, containing the irritation. "Of course, my daughter, sorry, was unintentionally," promised Eleonora. But the promise lasted less than a coffee warming. In the following days, Larissa caught her using her computer every 2 or 3 days, sometimes to look for a recipe, sometimes to make a video with her friends, sometimes to update the resume. The mother-in-law acted as if that were her right, while Daniel, when asked, just shrugged. "She's going through a difficult time, Larissa. Have patience." The drop of water came on a cold day of February. Upon returning from a medical appointment with Maximo, Larissa noticed the absence of something essential, her MacBook Pro, a work tool that had been expensive and was vital to her projects. "Eleonora, where is my notebook?" he asked, already feeling his heart accelerate. The mother-in-law, sitting on the couch with a magazine, responded with a disturbing tranquility. "I took it. I needed to look for a job. I have nothing at home." "What do you mean? Where did you get? Where did you take it?" Larissa insisted, the voice shaking. "To my room, of course. Your son said I could use what I needed from the house." The answer was like a slap. Larissa put the Maximum on the floor, sat in front of her mother-in-law, and, with a calm that hid a storm, said, "Return now." "Larissa, don't talk to me like that. It's just a computer, and I really need to work," Eleonora said, as if he was borrowing a glass. "Sugar. When is it going back?" Larissa pressed. "When to get a job and buy mine," said the mother-in-law, with a naturalness that froze the blood. At that moment, Larissa understood that there was no possible dialogue. Eleonora saw no problem appropriating what was not his own, and Daniel, when confronted at night, just reinforced this idea. "What's more? She will return when she tidies something. Daniel, this is my working instrument. I have deadlines, customers, I can't be without." Larissa argued, desperate. "Works on the fixed computer," he suggested, as if the issue were merely technical. "It's not about it. It's about her to have taken my thing without asking." Larissa exploded. "Don't do drama for nonsense. My mother is in a difficult situation," was the cold answer. The next day, Larissa went to the address where Eleonora rented a tiny and precarious room. There was his notebook, over an unstable table near the window. "I came to get my computer," he announced. "But we already talked yesterday. I need him," protested the mother-in-law. "And I need to work. This is my livelihood," said Larissa, already exhausted. "Oh, you just draw, you can do it on paper," Eleonora mocked. Larissa took a deep breath, took the notebook and left, ignoring the shouts of thief who echoed behind her. What came later was a storm. Daniel called furiously. "What did you do?" "My mother is crying, saying you almost beat her." "I just got back what is mine," said Larissa, firmly. "Return now," he demanded. "No." The discussion climbed when Daniel came home, accompanied by Eleonora, who was crying theatrically, accusing the daughter-in-law of cruelty. "Where is the notebook?" he shouted. "Guarded, and I won't return," Larissa replied, without giving in. "If you don't deliver, I'm leaving with my mother," Daniel threatened. "Then go," she said, without blinking. And he went. He took his things, left his son and left, as if it were a gesture of strength. Eleonora, on leaving, still had the boldness of smiling, throwing in the air, "You will see, it goes very well without you." Larissa was alone with Maximum, facing nights of insomnia, the need to reorganize the routine and explain to a young son because his father was gone. But against all expectations, something unexpected happened. She met again. The previously heavy days began to make sense again. Daniel called every day, demanding the notebook and an apology that would never come. Larissa, however, had already learned a valuable lesson. Some boundaries, once crossed, can no longer be negotiated. And when he came back a week later to look for more and try, in vain, find the computer, he found that some doors, once closed, do not open so easily. "Larissa, don't you realize you're destroying a family because of nonsense?" Daniel's voice echoed over the phone, loaded with an indignation that sounded more like despair. "You are the one who destroyed this family when you chose your mother against your wife. She is right, you are selfish." Larissa held her breath, her fingers squeezing the device hard. "It may be. But the notebook, I don't return." The firmness in his voice left no room for discussion. And so the impasse dragged it for weeks. Daniel moved to his mother's house. Larissa, alone with her son, discovered something surprising. Life without Eleonora's constant shadow was lighter than imagined. The projects flowed, new customers appeared, and for the first time in years, she breathed without the weight of a constant judgment. Until, one night, the phone rang again. Daniel's voice, once full of anger, was now broken. "Larissa, we need to talk." She felt her stomach turn. "What?" The break on the other side of the line was too long. "My mother sold the notebook." The words fell like a blade. "What?" His voice failed. "She sold yesterday. He said you would never return." Who needed the money? Larissa sank on the couch, her legs shaking. "How much?" 40,000. Half the value. Eleonora had surpassed all the boundaries. It wasn't enough to steal, she profited from it. And the money? She spent. He paid 6 months of advance, bought clothes. Daniel swallowed hard. "Larissa, she stole a 90,000 notebook and sold for 40. Do you understand that?" "I understand perfectly." Her voice was a sharp ice. "And what does she say?" "What was right. Which is part of the family." Larissa hung up. "The next day I was at the police station. The police report was filed. A criminal case was opened. When Eleonora received the subpoena, the world she controlled so much began to collapse. Daniel begged. Promised to return the money, buy a new notebook, do anything. But Larissa didn't give in. "Your mother needs to answer for what she did." The trial was fast. Eleonora tried to justify himself, spoke of difficulties, of ingratitude, a cruel daughter-in-law. But the facts were irrefutable. She had taken something that was not yours and profited from it. The sentence, penalty suspended, fine and the obligation to reimburse the damage. When they left the forum, Eleonora, pale and trembling, leaned on his son's arm. Daniel threw a look loaded with pure hatred. "You got what you wanted." She sustained her look, firmly. "I got justice." The compensation came from Daniel's pocket. Eleonora, without a fixed job, survived his nozzles. The condemnation, even suspended, managed his name. No one wanted to hire a woman with antecedents for theft. Larissa, in turn, received guard from the apartment, her son's pension and something much more valuable, the certainty that she would never allow her limits to be violated. 3 years later, his life was different. Married to Igor, a designer who treated Maxim as a son, she finally knew what it was like to have a family without charges, without manipulation. Igor's mother-in-law, discreet and respectful, would never dare to cross the borders Eleonora had trampled. Daniel, marked by the scandal, tried in vain to rebuild his image. The women who knew retreating to the story, the stigma of Mom's son pursued him like a shadow. Larissa now commanded her own design studio. For employees, weight projects, a solid career. Maxim, happy, divided his time between school, swimming and drawing classes. Sometimes, by passing her fingers through the keyboard of her new notebook, more powerful, more expensive, she remembered what was stolen. It was not 90,000 rubles he was worth. It was an entire life, the old one, made of forced silences and swallowed humiliations. In return, it gained a new existence. One in which respect for itself was not negotiable. And in the end, that had been the best transaction I had ever made.